Hi, I'm Jane Farnham, and I'm here today chatting to our expert on careers, employment, and the wonderful world of work. It's Russell Beck. Good morning, Russell.
Hi, Jane. Hope you're well, and thanks for having me today.
It's lovely to speak to you. Now, by way of introduction, Russell's experience includes being the global head of consulting for a people and talent strategy organization, managing director of recruitment outsourcing, and also European head of talent for Yahoo. During his career, he has consulted with and supported leadership teams of companies of all sizes, from SMEs, FTSE 100 and Fortune 500 organizations. Russell, there are a few issues around the subject of work at the moment, of course, but firstly, let's discuss what's become known as the Great Resignation, primarily, of course, as a result of COVID and the work from home guidance. So just give us some background into how big a deal this actually is for businesses.
Thanks, Jane. It's a massive deal. You only have to look at news headlines to see that the impact is real and causing some real problems. Ultimately, unemployment has been falling. People therefore have a choice. And the interesting comment on the Great Resignation is not, is it happening, but why did it take so long to happen? Because even before the pandemic, unemployment was at a 44-year low. And ultimately, and really simplistically, what that means is people have a choice. Anyone who has talent, who has a skill, is in demand, and they can choose who they work for. And with the advent of working from home being accepted, they can choose where they work from as well.
So what are some of the wide spectrum of effects due to this reset that we are actually seeing?
I think the effects are quite profound in challenging organizations, how they think about work. It is a seller's choice. If I have the talent, I can choose. I am in demand and I can go and work wherever and however I want. So you're seeing tenure being reduced. People can take a job, see if they like it, and if they do, fantastic. And if they don't, go somewhere else. And you're seeing companies respond in classic ways. I think even last week, and this might date the video, of course, last week, Pret increased their pay to £10 an hour, following fast on the footsteps of Sainsbury's, Aldi, Morrison's, et al. And pay absolutely motivates, but it's an unsustainable solution. Because, of course, now the entry level for those roles is £10 an hour. So you've undifferentiated, and those jobs are the same as they were before. It's just you're paying more. So the impact is quite hard and brutal. How do you attract and retain the staff that you need in order to survive and grow as an organisation?
Now, I can think of many organisations where this could become a matter of success, particularly for companies who are, coming in and finding their feet, and but also a matter of complete failure entirely for maybe some larger corporations.
Absolutely, and you're seeing already. We saw news stories of the lack of haulage drivers, and therefore is Christmas going to be cancelled? And there's bigger impacts playing out there in Brexit et al. And so forth. We're seeing shortage of skills in pretty much everything. In fact, interestingly, just as COVID hit, I did a lot of research on skills shortages in the UK. And I looked at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office's list that if you have certain skills, you can be accelerated in work visas and permits, etc. Now, I think from memory, there's 113 skills that were listed. And number 113 was librarian. If you consider what that, and absolutely no disrespect at all meant to that role, but I don't think anyone would have considered that librarians would be in such short supply that you get an accelerated visa to do it. And now, of course, you've got any role in digital, in technology, in healthcare, in services, in pickers and packers, in hospitality, and so on and so on and so forth. And so it is a life and death approach for organizations. If you need people to do things, then you have a challenge. And of course, the interesting conundrum with automation that sits in the background and is an obvious response to this: if I can't get people to do it, automate it. But of course, as you automate, the people you have left become more and more important to you. and everyone's trying to automate. So how do you attract, retain, and engage the workforce to survive?
Oh, the $1 million question. So where does your expertise come in, and how can you help an organization navigate its way through this tumultuous time?
I think, pay motivates. Of course, I'd love to get a pay rise. Don't get me wrong. Pay absolutely motivates. But if organizations, I suggest, if organizations only focus on pay, you make work transactional. If I'm going to sell 40 hours of my time to someone, then the only question left is how much. What is that worth to you? And so it's a transactional relationship. Increasingly, and COVID, I think, has wrought this. COVID has caused a great change in how people view lots of aspects of their lives. Why do I live in a city? Why do I commute? Why don't I live near the sea? Why don't I have a better quality of life? Do I need a big house? All of those aspects have come into play. And that's causing us to think about work differently. And I think employees increasingly want to move from a transaction to an interaction. So they want work that is meaningful. There's a point to it. There's a cause that has a career, that has a community, that has culture. And we call these the 4 Cs. And this is where, if you focus in these areas, is how leaders can build businesses that become sustainable and where people actually want to work.
Well, that's a lovely way of looking at it, but believe it or not, I know the audience may not believe me now, but there are other issues which aren't COVID related. Yes, they do exist. And we're talking probably about the generational approach to work, which I know you have a great name for. What do you call it?
I use the generation game, because that phrase will resonate with a cohort of the audience.
Yeah. And
a cohort of the audience will go, what does that mean?
What do you mean?
and in a microcosm, that's it. Because neither response is wrong or right. It is.
No, it's different. And we all have different experiences. So how well are employers then prepared for 5 generations in the workplace simultaneously? And can you name all 5 generations?
Really, from the oldest end, you have veterans, pre-1945, you have baby boomers, Gen X, of which I am one, although a little bit too close to the baby boomer cusp for my liking. We then have the millennials, also called Gen Y, broadly interchangeable. Millennials is an American term. And then Gen Z, the youngest generation, under 25. I suggest the 6th generation, the next one, my daughter's generation, will probably be called Gen C. The obvious C being COVID, and the second pretty obvious one being climate, because I think those are the 2 factors that have so heavily influenced that generation over the last 2 years and will continue to going forward. So are some companies not recognizing the change? And what does it mean to have, 5 generations in the workplace? How does that cause problems? How can that present itself? Yeah,
and also, not just problems, what are the opportunities that arise from that?
And that's the killer point. Because this isn't wrong or right, as I said earlier. It is. And actually, you need to understand the generations for some quite simple points. They are our customers. They are our colleagues. They are our friends. They're our relatives. So if we don't understand or appreciate the difference, then actually, how are you going to sell or motivate or engage or work with those people? So there's some fundamental aspects there for you need to consider. And the generations are different. We've lived through different experiences, and of course you could spend a long time in this, and I do. A simple one can be communication. Baby boomers came into the workplace with typewriters.
Yeah.
So they're very used to writing formally, to writing letters. Therefore, it's lengthy. It's dear sir, dear madam, really long, stick it in the snail mail, forget about it. Younger generations, it's 140 characters and it's now. It's now. It's instantaneous gratification. Take a photo of your lunch, stick it on Instagram. Don't take a bite until you've had 3 likes.
Yeah.
That's Yeah, so younger generations will want feedback now. What's going on? How am I doing? What's happening? Tell me. And baby boomers, veterans, will be going, you want to know how you're doing? Come back next January when the annual review is around. And I've done it for brevity, but that's an example of how it plays out.
So how then do you help businesses create focus and direction to use these differences in a successful way?
How we help is in a couple of ways. And actually, knowledge is useful. Understanding what it is, being inspired and challenged as to the problem and potential ways of solving it are useful. But knowledge is never enough. And our company name, Imagine, Think, Do, is very consciously chosen, helping you imagine what's going on, helping you think through the possibilities. But unless you take action, unless you do something, it actually, nice chat, nice talk, and so on. So actually helping organizations is, first of all, to realize that there is challenges and opportunities. Because the generations, the Great Resignation, all of these things, bringing meaning, purpose, all of those bring massive opportunities for companies and organizations to differentiate themselves. So understanding it, first of all, and then we can work with organizations to help them look at how they can embed that knowledge, how they can apply those learnings, and help them create organizations where people want to work, where they enjoy working, where they can be authentic to themselves and who and how they are, and deliver.
So looking at the issues, providing solutions that bring about a positive change. So lots of great takeaways, I would imagine, for businesses when they invite you to come to talk to them. What does your ideal speaking booking look like, Russell?
The ideal one would be, it's great to obviously engage the audience and impart ideas and knowledge, but the real ones are where we have an impact, where we create a step change for the audience, where we help the audience get to that that realization moment that causes them to do something, to take action. As I say, knowledge is not enough. It's the application of the knowledge. And unless we inspire or challenge or help organizations to apply the knowledge, then we haven't really done our job. Unless we've motivated you to do it. It was lovely chat, but there we go. So that's the gigs that we really love doing.
The gigs that give you a bit of a buzz. So without giving too much away, are you able to share with us an example of a technique or something that can ensure that the business can, take away and impart this change within the organization? Have you seen a business, an example of one key thing that really is great for companies to take on board?
I think one thing for companies to take on board is I'm a firm believer that people are the USP of any organization. You can have all the tech you want, but without the people to enable it, manage it, deliver it, make use of it, then it's really a bit moot on one level. And I think the key is people are the differentiator. And even pre-COVID, the World Economic Forum was saying that your people strategy is the most important part of your business strategy. And that's 2019. Today, in the context of what we've been talking about, the Great Resignation and so on and so forth, that is truer than ever, because it's the people that make the difference.
So invest in your people. So talking about something, just looking at the future, what excites you the most about all of the disruption that we're seeing now? What's the most exciting thing that comes from that or could come from that?
Most exciting thing, I think, is the opportunity. I think it's the opportunities for individuals, because now it's accepted. We can work from home. We can pretty much work from everywhere. You think 2 years ago, we've never allowed that. And that's a classic generational trait. And you can explain why. You can explain why baby boomers went, oh, you're working from home. Oh, dear me, you've got to be in the office. And that's all from the unemployment curves when they joined work in the later 70s. So that opportunity for people to be and find what motivates them is really interesting. And I think, therefore, the response for organizations to create environments and cultures that really differentiates them is really interesting. And I think that's where I think the future will be made and defined. Organizations knowing really what they are, what their offer is, and differentiating themselves to the extent that you don't want everyone to work for you. You want the people who love what your offer is and what you do to work for you. That's it.
So the key takeaway, so lots of opportunities moving forward if you take advantage of them. Well, Russell, it's been so insightful chatting to you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Jenny. Keep safe.
And if you'd like to book Russell to make a real change at your event, then simply contact myself or Steve at Great British Speakers on 01753 439 289, or you can email bookings@greatbritishtalent.com.